The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the ESS Harmony. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood with her hands behind her back, watching the distant lights of the trading station. 300 years ago, her ancestors had reached out to the galaxy with hope and fear. Now, humanity was just another member of the Galactic Collective. One voice among thousands. Elena liked it that way. She had spent 20 years in the diplomatic escort fleet, and she had never fired a weapon in anger. Her ships protected trade convoys, rescued stranded vessels, and showed the flag at peaceful gatherings. It was good work. Honest work. Admiral, incoming message from Earth, her communications officer called out. Priority 1. Elena walked to her command chair and sat down. Priority 1 messages were rare. She pressed the accept button, and the face of Fleet Admiral Chen appeared on the screen. Elena, we have a situation, Chen said. His face looked tired. The Jathir Empire just landed troops on New Bethlehem. They're claiming the colony as their territory. Elena felt her chest tighten. New Bethlehem was home to 50,000 humans. Farmers mostly. People who had left Earth to grow food under a different sun. What's their justification? Elena asked. They say it's in their historical territory. Some old star charts from before we joined the collective. Chen shook his head. It's garbage and they know it. But they're betting we won't fight. Elena understood immediately. Humanity had been peaceful for so long that the galaxy saw them as soft. 3 centuries without a war. 3 centuries of trading, talking, and compromising. The other species didn't know what humans used to be. The history files were sealed, classified. The wars that had nearly destroyed Earth were just old stories now. Ancient history that no one bothered to remember. What are my orders? Elena asked. Get to New Bethlehem. Show our presence. But Elena, Chen paused. Don't start anything. The assembly is meeting now. We'll send you instructions soon. The screen went dark. Elena sat in her chair and thought about the farmers on New Bethlehem. She thought about the Jathir soldiers walking through their fields claiming their homes. Set course for New Bethlehem, she ordered. Maximum speed. Her crew moved quickly. The Harmony and its escort ships turned away from the trade station and jumped into faster-than-light travel. The journey would take 3 days. Elena spent those days reading reports. The Jathir Empire was one of the 3 great powers in the collective. Reptilian beings, tall and proud, with a long history of conquest. They had been expanding slowly for years, taking small territories, pushing boundaries, and humanity always negotiated, always compromised. On the 2nd day, Elena received a message from the Jathir Empress herself. It played on her screen, and Elena watched the tall reptilian woman speak with casual confidence. Admiral Vasquez, humanity has been good partners in the collective. We value your trading skills and your artistic contributions. This matter of New Bethlehem is simply a correction of old borders. We offer fair compensation for any inconvenience. There is no need for conflict, the message ended. Elena played it again, listening to the tone. The Empress wasn't worried. She expected humans to accept the situation, maybe negotiate for a few more credits in compensation. On the 3rd day, Elena's fleet arrived at New Bethlehem. She could see Jathir warships in orbit, 12 of them, heavy cruisers with weapon ports open. Her own fleet had 4 ships, lighter, faster, designed for escort duty. The Jathir commander sent her a message. Human vessels, you are not needed here. This territory is now under Jathir protection. Please depart. Elena took a deep breath. She opened a channel to Earth to the assembly. This is Admiral Vasquez. I'm in position. Awaiting orders, the response took 20 minutes. When it came, it was Fleet Admiral Chen again. But this time, other faces were behind him. The President, the Defense Minister, the leaders of the Human Assembly. Elena, we're issuing a formal ultimatum to the Jathir Empire. They have 30 days to withdraw from New Bethlehem. If they refuse, we invoke Article 7 of the Collective Charter. Article 7. Elena knew it well. The right of self-defense. The right to withdraw from collective peace treaties when under threat. Understood, sir. And if they don't withdraw? Chen's face was hard. Then we remind the galaxy who we used to be. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Fear and something else. Something that had been sleeping in humanity for 300 years. Send the ultimatum, she said. The message went out across the collective networks. Humanity demands withdrawal. 30 days. No negotiation. The response was immediate. Other species sent messages of concern. The Kresh hives, the insectoid merchants urged compromise. The Luminar Commonwealth, Crystalline beings of pure thought offered to mediate. Everyone was trying to calm the situation, and the Jathir Empress laughed. Elena saw the broadcast. The Empress actually laughed at the human ultimatum. 30 days or what? Humanity has no warrior tradition. They are traders and artists. They will accept compensation as they always do. We dismiss this ultimatum as political theater. The countdown began. 30 days. Elena kept her ships in orbit, watching the Jathir forces below. Every day more Jathir colonists arrived. They were building settlements, permanent structures. They weren't leaving. On day 15, Elena received new orders. Return to Earth. The diplomatic fleet was being recalled. She followed orders, leaving a small monitoring station behind. When she arrived at Earth, everything had changed. The orbital shipyards were active, building new vessels. Old ships were being pulled from storage, their hulls patched and weapons systems updated. Elena saw things she had only read about in classified files. Weapons designed for total war. "Welcome home, Admiral," Chen said when they met in person. "We have a lot of work to do. If they don't leave New Bethlehem, we go to war, and we need you to be ready." Elena looked at her old mentor. "They don't believe we'll fight." "No," Chen agreed. "They've forgotten what we're capable of. They think peace is our nature. They don't understand that peace was our choice." The 30 days passed. The Jathir Empire didn't withdraw. They didn't even respond to the final warning. On day 31, the Human Assembly made their announcement. Humanity was withdrawing from the military restrictions of the Collective Charter. They were reclaiming their right to self-defense. And Admiral Elena Vasquez received her new assignment. Commander of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. 50 warships newly built and armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Her orders were simple. Take back New Bethlehem. Show the galaxy what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The long peace was over. The war room deep beneath Geneva was filled with people Elena had never expected to see together. Military commanders sat beside civilian leaders. Scientists worked next to intelligence officers. And in the center of it all stood a holographic display of human space. "They think we're bluffing," President Sarah Morrison said. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. "Every species in the collective has sent us messages. They're all saying the same thing. Accept arbitration, take the compensation, move on." Elena stood with the other fleet commanders watching the display. Red markers showed Jathir positions. Blue markers showed human colonies. There were so many more red markers. "What about our allies?" someone asked. Defense Minister Kwame Okafor shook his head. "We don't have military allies. We have trade partners, business relationships. None of them will risk war with the Jathir Empire for us. Then we stand alone," Fleet Admiral Chen said simply. President Morrison touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed something different. Archives, historical records, files marked with the highest security classifications. "We sealed these records 300 years ago," Morrison said quietly. "When we joined the collective, we decided to leave our violent past behind. We wanted to be better. We wanted to prove that humanity could choose peace." Elena saw images flash across the display. Ancient Earth cities burning, mushroom clouds rising, soldiers fighting in trenches, ships destroying each other in orbit. The resource wars that had nearly ended human civilization. "The galaxy doesn't know this history," Morrison continued. "They see us as we are now, peaceful, diplomatic. They have no idea what we survived, what we learned." "They're about to find out," Chen said. The meeting continued for hours. Elena learned things that shocked her. Humanity had never stopped developing weapons. They had simply hidden the research, buried it in classified programs. Scientists had continued working on military technology, just in case it was ever needed. Now they were pulling it all out. Weapons based on theories the collective had never explored. The other species fought with energy beams and missiles. Clean, civilized warfare. Humanity had designed weapons that were neither clean nor civilized. "We have nuclear warheads," one scientist explained, "but not for direct attacks. We use them to pump X-ray lasers. One warhead can power a beam that can cut through a ship's hull from 1,000 kilometers away. We have kinetic weapons," another scientist added. Tungsten rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon, but they're completely legal under collective law. "We have cyber warfare," an intelligence officer said. "The collective networks are open and trusting. We can shut down enemy communications, navigation, even life support. Elena listened to it all and felt sick. This was the arsenal of a species that had learned war the hard way. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself, and in doing so had become very good at destruction. The question is, President Morrison said, are we willing to use this? Once we start, the galaxy will never see us the same way again. The room was quiet. Elena thought about the farmers on New Bethlehem. She thought about every other small colony that would be targeted if humanity backed down. If we don't use it now, Elena said, we'll have to use it later. The Jothir won't stop at New Bethlehem, and neither will the others. Every aggressive species in the collective will see us as easy targets. Morrison looked at her for a long moment. Then we're agreed. We fight. The vote was unanimous. Elena spent the next 2 weeks preparing her fleet. The first expeditionary fleet was unlike anything humanity had built in 3 centuries. 50 warships, but they were designed for a different kind of war. Her flagship was the ESS Indomitable, heavy armor, advanced sensors, and weapons that made her uncomfortable just thinking about them. Admiral, you need to see this, her new tactical officer said. Lieutenant Marcus Webb was young, but he had trained in the classified programs. He understood the weapons. He showed her a simulation. This is what happens when we engage the Jothir fleet at New Bethlehem. They have 40 ships now. They've reinforced since we left. Elena watched the simulation play out. Human ships, outnumbered nearly 1-to-1, faced the Jothir force. Standard collective tactics would have us lose badly, Webb said. But we're not using standard tactics. The simulation changed. Human ships moved in ways that violated collective doctrine. They spread out, using the 3-dimensional space that most species ignored. They targeted specific systems on enemy ships, rather than trying to destroy them completely. They used electronic warfare to blind and confuse, and they used those terrible weapons. In the simulation, the Jothir fleet died in less than 4 hours. Is this accurate? Elena asked. Conservative, actually, Webb said. We're assuming they adapt quickly. They won't. They've never faced warfare like this. Elena felt that cold weight in her stomach again. How many casualties on their side? 15,000 approximately. Most will be able to abandon ship before their vessels are destroyed. And on our side? Minimal. Maybe a few hundred if we're unlucky. Elena closed her eyes. 15,000 Jothir dead. Hundreds of humans. The math was brutal. Prepare the fleet, she said. We leave in 3 days. Before they departed, Elena did something unusual. She went to visit her grandmother. Rosa Vasquez was 98 years old and lived in a small apartment in Mexico City. She had been a soldier once in the last days before humanity joined the collective. Abuela, Elena said, sitting beside the old woman, I need to know. What was it like? Fighting in a real war? Rosa looked at her granddaughter with eyes that had seen too much. It was necessary, and it was terrible, both things at once. I'm about to start a war, Elena said quietly. No, mija. They started the war when they took your colony. You're just finishing it. Rosa took Elena's hand. The galaxy thinks we're sheep. They need to remember we're wolves who chose to be sheep, and wolves never forget how to hunt. Elena left her grandmother and returned to her fleet. 3 days later, they jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey to New Bethlehem took 5 days. Elena used the time to train her crew. They practiced maneuvers that seemed insane by collective standards. Ships cooperating without constant communication, attacks from unexpected angles, weapons firing in coordinated patterns. When they arrived at New Bethlehem, the Jothir fleet was waiting. 42 ships now. They had called in reinforcements. The Jothir commander sent a message. His tone was confident, almost amused. Human fleet, you are outnumbered. Withdraw now and we will forget this incident. Continue and we will destroy you. Elena opened a channel that broadcast to every ship in the system. Human, Jothir, the civilian transports and monitoring stations. Everyone would hear this. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. The Jothir Empire has 30 minutes to begin withdrawing from New Bethlehem. This is your final warning. The Jothir commander laughed. You and what army, human? You have 50 ships. We have 42, and each of ours is larger than yours. Your threat is empty. Elena looked at her tactical officer. Mr. Webb, prepare to engage. Show them what an army looks like when it knows how to fight. The 30 minutes passed in silence. The Jothir didn't move, and then the killing began. The Battle of New Bethlehem lasted 3 hours and 47 minutes. The galaxy would remember it for 3,000 years. Elena watched from the command chair of the Indomitable as her fleet moved into position. The Jathir ships formed a traditional defensive wall, presenting their strongest shields forward. It was standard collective doctrine, solid, proven. It was also predictable. All ships execute maneuver Delta, Elena ordered. Her fleet split apart. Half went up, half went down, moving in 3 dimensions while the Jathir maintained their flat formation. Within seconds, human ships had superior angles on their enemies. "Sir, they're not adapting," Webb reported. "They're still in wall formation." "They don't know how," Elena said. "Target their communications arrays. Fire when ready." The Indomitables. Weapons weren't like anything the Jathir had seen. No bright energy beams, no missiles with visible trails. Instead, invisible X-ray lasers reached out across the darkness. They burned through the Jathir communication dishes in milliseconds. Across the battlefield, 10 Jathir ships suddenly went silent. They couldn't talk to their flagship, couldn't coordinate. "They're trying to close formation," Webb said. "Standard response to communication loss." Hit them with the kinetic strikes. The human ships launched their tungsten rods, simple metal, but accelerated to insane speeds by magnetic rails. They weren't explosive. They didn't need to be. When a rod moving at a significant fraction of light speed hit a ship, the kinetic energy alone was devastating. 3 Jathir ships died in the first salvo. Their hulls simply shattered from the impact. Elena felt sick watching it happen, but she kept her voice steady. "Continue the attack pattern." The Jathir commander finally understood he was in trouble. His ships began breaking formation, trying to scatter. But the human vessels were faster, more maneuverable. They had been designed for this kind of chaos. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple distress signals from their fleet," the communications officer reported. "Ignore them," Elena said. "They chose this fight." But she couldn't ignore what happened next. One of the Jathir ships, badly damaged, tried to ram the human destroyer Valiant. It was a desperate move, and it might have worked against another collective species. The Valiant's captain didn't panic. She simply adjusted her ship's position, fired a point-blank X-ray burst that cut the Jathir vessel in half, and continued her attack pattern. Elena had trained that captain, had taught her that hesitation killed more people than decisiveness. Now she watched it put into practice. "Sir, enemy flagship is trying to retreat," Webb said. "Don't let them." Elena opened a channel to her attack squadrons. "This is Vasquez. The flagship cannot escape. If they report back what happened here, the Jathir Empire might actually prepare for the next battle. I want that ship disabled." 6 human destroyers broke off and pursued the flagship. The Jathir vessel was fast, but human ships had one advantage the enemy hadn't counted on. They used AI assistance for navigation. Not full artificial intelligence, which the collective banned, but smart computers that could calculate jump trajectories faster than biological beings. The destroyers knew where the flagship would jump before it happened. They were waiting when it emerged from faster-than-light travel. The flagship died quickly. Its crew had just enough time to get to the escape pods. 3 hours and 47 minutes after it began, the battle ended. 42 Jathir ships had entered the battle. None left intact. 31 were destroyed completely. 11 were crippled and surrendered. Human losses were 2 destroyers damaged, 147 casualties, 17 dead. Jathir losses were over 14,000 dead, another 6,000 in the escape pods and damaged ships. Elena sat in her chair and stared at the tactical display. The numbers didn't feel real. How could they have won so completely? "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Jathir ground. Commander on New Bethlehem," the communications officer said. "He wants to negotiate surrender terms." Elena took a deep breath. "Put him on screen." The Jathir officer appeared. He was tall, with green scales and proud eyes, but those eyes showed fear now. "Admiral Vasquez, I wish to discuss the evacuation of our ground forces. We have 15,000 soldiers and 3,000 civilians on the surface." "You have 24 hours to evacuate," Elena said. "After that, we begin orbital strikes." The Jothir officer's face showed shock. Orbital strikes? On a colony world? That violates every collective law of war. We're not bound by collective law anymore, Elena reminded him. You pushed us out of it. But I'll give you a choice. Surrender your forces now, let my soldiers take control peacefully and no one else dies. Refuse, and I show you what orbital bombardment looks like. You're bluffing, the officer said, but he didn't sound sure. Elena nodded to Webb. Target coordinates Delta 7, empty field 10 kilometers from their main base. Fire 1 kinetic strike. Firing, Webb said. On the planet below, a tungsten rod fell from orbit. It hit the ground at a speed that turned rock into vapor and soil into glass. The explosion was visible from space. A crater 300 meters wide appeared where there had been a field. Elena looked at the Jothir officer. His face had gone pale, his scales losing color. That was one rod, she said quietly. I have thousands, and I can put them anywhere on your planet. Every building, every vehicle, every position. You have 1 hour to surrender. The officer's hands were shaking. I need to consult with my superiors. You have 1 hour, Elena repeated. Vasquez out. The screen went dark. Webb looked at her. Admiral, would you really have done it? Orbital bombardment of their positions? Elena didn't answer for a long moment. I don't know, she finally said. And I'm glad we don't have to find out. 43 minutes later, the Jothir ground forces surrendered. They marched out of their positions with their weapons powered down. Elena's Marines took control of New Bethlehem without firing a shot. The human colonists came out of their shelters, 50,000 farmers and their families blinking in the sunlight, hardly believing they were free. But the battle's real impact was being felt across the galaxy. The collective networks had broadcast everything. Every species had watched humanity's return to war, and they were terrified. Messages flooded in from every direction. The Kresh hives demanded an explanation. The Luminar Commonwealth called for an emergency session of the Collective Council. Smaller species sent messages of support, amazement, and fear. The Jothir Empress sent a simple message. This is not over, humans. You have made a powerful enemy today. Elena read the message and felt tired. So tired. She had won the battle, but she knew what came next. War, real war, the kind that didn't end with one battle. Set course for Earth, she ordered. We need to prepare for their response. As the Indomitable jumped back to human space, Elena stood at the observation deck and watched the stars. Somewhere, out there, the Jothir Empire was gathering its forces, calling its allies, preparing for revenge. Humanity had spent 300 years building peace. They had put aside their weapons and chosen a better path. Now, in less than 4 hours, they had reminded the galaxy what they used to be. Warriors who knew no mercy. Soldiers who fought with calculation and precision. The long peace was dead. Elena mourned it, even as she prepared for what came next. Behind her, in the darkness of space, New Bethlehem's lights shone peaceful and free. 50,000 people, who would sleep safely tonight because humanity remembered how to fight. It had cost 14,000 Jothir lives. Elena would remember everyone. She would carry their weight for the rest of her days. That was the price of war. Not just the dead, but the burden on those who survived. The burden on those who had to give the orders. The Jothir Empress refused to accept defeat. 3 weeks after New Bethlehem, she made her announcement. It played on every screen in the collective. The humans have revealed themselves as warmongers and barbarians, she declared. They possess weapons of mass destruction. They wage war without honor. We call upon all civilized species to join us in containing this threat. We are forming the Sovereignty Coalition to protect the galaxy from human aggression. Elena watched the broadcast from the war room beneath Geneva. President Morrison stood beside her, along with Fleet Admiral Chen and the other commanders. How many species have joined her coalition? Morrison asked. 4 so far, an intelligence officer replied. The Jothir Empire, the Core Dominion, the Vex clans, and the Threll Confederacy. Together, they control about 15% of collective space. Their combined fleet strength is approximately 3,000 ships. And we have 400 combat vessels, Madam President, with another 600 in construction. Morrison closed her eyes. They outnumber us 7-1. 8-1, actually, Chen corrected. But numbers aren't everything. We proved that at New Bethlehem. Elena studied the star maps. The coalition species were spread across the galaxy. If they coordinated their attacks, they could hit human colonies from multiple directions at once. They won't wait, she said. The Empress needs a victory to justify the coalition. She'll attack soon. Elena was right. The attacks came 3 days later. 3 human colonies struck simultaneously. The coalition had learned from New Bethlehem. They didn't send their fleets in neat formations. They came in waves, trying to overwhelm human defenses with numbers. At Proxima Station, 20 coalition ships attacked. The human defenders had only 5 vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 18 coalition ships were destroyed or disabled. All 5 human ships survived, though 3 were heavily damaged. At New Shanghai, the attack was heavier. 40 ships against 8. The human commander made the hard choice and evacuated the colony, then destroyed the orbital facilities to deny them to the enemy. The coalition took the planet, but found nothing but empty buildings and scorched shipyards. At Riverside Colony, something different happened. The coalition sent 30 ships. They expected light resistance. Instead, they found 10 human warships waiting, along with something new. Mines, hundreds of space mines, floating in carefully calculated patterns. The coalition ships walked right into them. The mines weren't explosive. They were kinetic interceptors, small but deadly. They shredded the enemy formation. What happened next shocked the galaxy more than New Bethlehem had. The human commander, Admiral James Patterson, ordered an attack into coalition space. His ships followed the retreating enemy and struck their forward base, destroying it completely. Elena watched the reports come in and felt the situation spiraling. "They're not going to stop," she said. "Every time they attack, we hit back harder. This is going to spread." Morrison looked at the casualty reports. Human losses were still minimal. Fewer than 2,000 dead total. But coalition losses were mounting. Nearly 50,000 dead across all battles. "The other collective species are getting scared," Morrison said. "We're getting messages. Some of them think we're going to conquer the galaxy." "Are we?" Elena asked quietly. Morrison looked at her. "What? Are we going to conquer the galaxy?" Elena repeated. "Because I'm reading the strategic assessments and they all say the same thing. We can't just defend. If we want to survive, we have to break the coalition completely. That means invading their space, destroying their fleets, maybe even occupying their homeworlds." The room went quiet. Chen spoke first. "She's right. The coalition isn't going to stop until they defeat us or we defeat them. There's no middle ground anymore." Morrison sat down heavily. "If we invade coalition space, every other species will see us as the aggressors. We'll prove the Empress right. Or we prove that we can't be pushed around," Elena countered. "Madam President, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about the cost, the lives lost, the horror of war. I think about it too." Every single day, Elena pulled up images on the display. Human colonies, civilians, children playing in parks. But I also think about them. Every human in every colony. Right now, they're terrified. They know the coalition is out there, and they know attacks could come at any moment. The only way to protect them is to end this war. Quickly. Decisively. Morrison looked at the images for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Then we end it. But Elena, I need you to understand something. When this is over, we're going back to being the peaceful species we were. This is temporary. This is survival. We don't become conquerors." "Agreed," Elena said. "We're not fighting to rule the galaxy. We're fighting so we can go back to being farmers and artists and traders. But first, we have to survive." The human counteroffensive began 2 weeks later. Elena led the main fleet. 80 ships moving deep into coalition space. Their target was the Core Dominion, the smallest coalition member. The Core had joined the coalition thinking there was safety in numbers. They were about to learn otherwise. The human fleet hit 3 core systems simultaneously. They didn't destroy the colonies. Instead, they targeted military installations, shipyards, and supply depots. They used precision strikes that minimized civilian casualties, and they used information warfare. Human hackers broke into core networks and broadcast messages to the civilian population. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to end your government's participation in this war. Pressure your leaders to withdraw from the coalition, and we leave peacefully. The core Dominion tried to fight back, but their fleet was designed for defense, not offense. Human ships ran circles around them, striking and retreating, never letting them pin down a target. Within 3 weeks, the core withdrew from the coalition. Their government fell, replaced by leaders who signed a peace treaty with humanity. 1 down, 3 to go. The Vex clans were next. They were tougher opponents, more experienced in warfare. But they made a critical mistake. They gathered their fleet for a massive assault on Earth itself. 200 Vex ships jumped into the solar system, ready to attack humanity's homeworld. They expected to find it lightly defended. Instead, they found 400 human warships waiting. Earth's defense fleet had been reinforced and hidden in the outer system. The Vex had walked into a trap. The Battle of Sol lasted 2 days. It was the largest space battle in collective history. When it ended, the Vex clans ceased to exist as a military power. Their fleet was destroyed. Their homeworld sued for peace. 2 down, 2 to go. But Elena was seeing cracks in humanity itself. Some commanders were getting too aggressive. Some politicians were talking about teaching the galaxy a lesson and establishing human supremacy. The temper that had won the war was threatening to consume the peace. Elena met with Admiral Patterson, whose aggressive tactics had won several battles. He was a good officer, but she saw something in his eyes that worried her. "Sir, I think we should push harder," Patterson said. "The Threll Confederacy is weak right now. We could take their capital in a month, and then what?" Elena asked. "We occupy their world. Rule over them? Why not? They attacked us. They deserve whatever we do to them." Elena shook her head. "No, that's not who we are. We fight to survive, not to rule." "Maybe that's our mistake," Patterson said. "Maybe if we ruled, we wouldn't have to worry about the next war." Elena stood up. "Admiral Patterson, you're relieved of command." Effective immediately. Patterson's face showed shock. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that you've forgotten what we're fighting for." Elena kept her voice calm. "We're fighting so we can go back to peace, not so we can become the next empire. Now get out of my office." After Patterson left, Elena sat alone and wondered if she had made the right choice. The war was changing people, changing humanity. They were remembering how to fight, but they were also remembering how to hate. The news from the front got worse. The Threll Confederacy was using human tactics against human forces. They had studied the battles and adapted. They were hiding their ships using information warfare, fighting smart instead of honorable, and they were targeting human civilian vessels, transports, trading ships. They couldn't beat human warships, so they went after softer targets. The human population was getting angry. Really angry. Elena saw the polls. 70% of humans wanted total war, wanted the Threll homeworld reduced to ash. Morrison called an emergency meeting. "We're losing control of this," the president said. "The people want revenge." "Then we give them victory instead," Elena said. "But not the kind they're thinking of. We need to end this war now before we become what they think we are." Chen nodded. "What do you have in mind?" Elena pulled up a plan she had been developing. "One final offensive. We hit the Jathir homeworld and the Threll capital simultaneously. But we don't invade. We don't bombard. We demonstrate overwhelming force, then we offer terms. Peace with honor. They keep their worlds, we keep ours, and the war ends." "And if they refuse?" Morrison asked. "Then we show them what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." The final offensive began 1 month later. 2 fleets jumped into position on the same day at the same hour. Admiral Elena Vasquez led the first fleet to the Jathir homeworld. Admiral Chen led the second fleet to the Threll capital. Between them, they commanded 500 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Elena stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the Jathir homeworld grow larger on the display. It was a beautiful planet, red continents under purple skies. 3 billion Jathir lived there, going about their daily lives. They were about to have a very bad day. "Sir, detecting Jathir defense fleet," Webb reported. 87 ships in defensive positions around the planet. "They're hailing us. Put them through." A Jathir admiral appeared on screen. Not the Empress herself, but one of her high commanders. "Human fleet, you are in violation of collective space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." "I have a message for your Empress," Elena said. Tell her Admiral Vasquez wishes to speak with her directly. The Sea Key. Empress does not negotiate with barbarians. Elena nodded to Webb. Fire. Demonstration salvo. 3. Human destroyers launched kinetic strikes. Not at the Jathir fleet. Not at the planet. At 3 defense satellites orbiting at high altitude. The satellites exploded silently. That was 3 satellites, Elena said calmly. I have 500 ships. Each ship carries hundreds of weapons. I can destroy every satellite, every orbital station, every defensive position you have. And I can do it in under an hour. Now tell your Empress I want to talk. 10 minutes later, the Empress appeared on screen. She looked older than Elena remembered. Tired. The pride was still there, but it was wounded pride now. Admiral Vasquez, the Empress said coldly, you come to my homeworld with an invasion fleet. Do you expect me to surrender? No, Elena said. I expect you to listen. Your Majesty, this war has cost both our peoples dearly. You've lost over 100,000 soldiers. We've lost 3,000. Your economy is collapsing. Your allies have abandoned you. And I'm sitting in orbit over your homeworld with enough firepower to turn this into a dead rock. Then do it, the Empress challenged. Prove that you're the monsters I said you were. Elena took a deep breath. I don't want to prove anything. I want to stop this war. Your Majesty, you made a mistake. You took one of our colonies because you thought we were weak. You were wrong. We're not weak. We're just peaceful. There's a difference. A difference you've destroyed with your weapons. No, Elena said firmly. We defended ourselves. You attacked us. You formed a coalition to destroy us. And we beat you. Now it's time to end this before more people die. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. What are your terms? Complete withdrawal from all human space. Reparations for the colonies you damaged. A non-aggression pact for 50 years. And you publicly acknowledge that humanity has the right to defend itself. And if I refuse? Elena looked at the Jathir homeworld on her display. 3 billion people. Then I show you what orbital bombardment really looks like. And Your Majesty, I really don't want to do that. Because unlike you, I remember that those are people down there. Civilians, children, people who had nothing to do with starting this war. Something changed in the Empress's expression. For the first time, she looked uncertain. You would really do it? To protect my people? Yes, Elena's voice was steady. But I'd rather not. I'd rather we both walk away from this. You keep your throne. I keep my conscience. And both our peoples survive. You're asking me to accept defeat? I'm asking you to accept reality, Elena corrected. Your Majesty, you can't win this war. You never could. The only question is how many more people die before you admit it. The screen went dark. Elena waited, her heart pounding. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. Everyone knew what hung in the balance. 5 minutes later, the Empress called back. I will consider your terms, but I need something in return. What? A demonstration of your mercy. My defense fleet is prepared to fight. They will die defending this world because that's their duty. I'm asking you to let them stand down without losing face. Show the galaxy that you can choose restraint. Elena understood immediately. The Empress needed a way to surrender that didn't look like surrender. Your fleet has fought bravely, but the battle is over. Order your ships to power down their weapons and withdraw to their berths. We will not fire on them. The Empress nodded slowly. And you'll withdraw your fleet? Once we've reached an agreement and verified your forces have withdrawn from human space, yes. The Empress closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Elena saw something she hadn't expected. Relief. Very well, Admiral. You have your peace. I'll sign your treaty. Half a galaxy away, Admiral Chen was having a similar conversation with the Threll government. It took longer because the Threll were more stubborn, but eventually they too agreed to terms. The war was over. Elena stayed in orbit for 3 more days, overseeing the treaty signing. The Empress kept her word. Jathir forces withdrew from human space. The orbital platforms around New Bethlehem and the other colonies came down. The coalition formally disbanded. On the 3rd day, Elena met with a captured Jathir admiral who was being released as part of the peace agreement. His name was Corvus, and he had commanded one of the fleets destroyed at New Bethlehem. I don't understand you humans, Corvus said. They stood in a conference room on the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. You defeated us utterly. You could have conquered our worlds. Enslaved us. Instead, you offer peace. We're not conquerors, Elena said. We never wanted this war. But you're so good at it, Corvus said quietly. I studied military history all my life. I've never seen tactics like yours. It's as if you were born for warfare. Elena laughed bitterly. We were. Our species nearly destroyed itself learning how to fight. We killed billions of our own people in wars so terrible that we sealed the records to try and forget. When we joined the collective, we chose to be something different, something better. And then we forced you to remember. Yes. Elena looked at the Jathier Admiral. Do you know what our most terrifying weapon is? It's not the kinetic strikes or the X-ray lasers. It's our ability to choose when to use them. We can fight, we can kill, but we can also stop. That's what makes us dangerous. Corvus nodded slowly. I'll tell others what I learned here. Perhaps it will prevent the next war. I hope so, Elena said, because I don't want to do this again. When Elena returned to Earth, she expected celebrations, parades, victory ceremonies. Instead, she found a planet in turmoil. The human population was divided. Half celebrated the peace, half demanded that humanity continue the war, conquer the coalition species, establish human dominance over the galaxy. President Morrison met her at the spaceport. The president looked exhausted. Elena, we have a problem. The war changed us. Some people want to keep fighting. Then they're idiots, Elena said bluntly. Madam President, we won. We proved we can defend ourselves. That's all we needed to do. Try telling that to the crowds. Morrison gestured to a nearby screen showing protests. Thousands of people demanding a military government, demanding expansion, demanding revenge. Elena felt sick. They had won the war, but they were losing the peace. That night, she gave a speech. It was broadcast across human space to every colony, every ship, every outpost. People of Earth and the colonies, she began. 2 months ago, we went to war. We fought because we had to, because our colonies were attacked and our people were threatened. We remembered how to fight and we did it well. Too well, maybe, she paused. But now I see something that frightens me more than any enemy fleet. I see humans who want to keep fighting, who want to conquer, who want to prove we're superior to every other species in the galaxy. Elena looked directly at the camera. If that's who we become, then we've lost everything. We didn't fight this war to prove we were better. We fought to prove we had the right to exist in peace. And now that we've won, we need to remember why we fought. The galaxy is watching us right now. They're terrified of us. They've seen what we can do. But they need to see something else. They need to see that we can choose mercy over vengeance, that we can be strong without being cruel, that we can defend ourselves without becoming the monsters they fear. She took a deep breath. So yes, we'll keep our military. We'll stay strong, but we'll use that strength to protect the weak, not oppress them. We'll use it to keep the peace, not break it. That's who we are. That's who we chose to be 300 years ago. And that's who we'll be again. The speech didn't convince everyone, but it convinced enough. Over the following weeks, the calls for continued war faded. Humanity began the hard work of returning to normal life. But Elena knew nothing would ever be truly normal again. The galaxy had been reminded of humanity's capacity for war. Humanity had been reminded too. The question now was what they would do with that knowledge. 2 years after the war ended, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Collective and looked at the assembled representatives. The hall held delegates from 3,000 species, and every one of them was watching her. She wasn't Admiral Vasquez anymore. After the war, she had resigned her military commission and accepted a new role. Human ambassador to the collective. It was harder than commanding a fleet. The human government proposes the formation of a new organization, Elena said, her voice carrying through the hall. The Terran Defense Concordat. It will be open to any species that wishes to join. Its purpose is simple. Mutual defense. No member will stand alone against aggression. The hall erupted in discussion. Some species were excited. Others were worried. The Luminar Commonwealth representative, a crystalline being named Solaris, spoke first. Ambassador Vasquez, are you suggesting that humanity will defend other species after you made it clear you're capable of destroying them? Yes, Elena said simply. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. The war taught us something important. Peace only works when everyone respects it. When small species can be attacked without consequence, there is no real peace. Just temporary truces between aggressions. A small delegate from the Miru Republic stood up. The Miru were a timid species, often bullied by larger neighbors. And what do you want in return? Our resources? Our territory, your friendship, Elena said, and your trust. Look, I know you're all scared of us. I'd be scared too if I were you. But we don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in peace. The best way to ensure that peace is to protect it together. Over the next 3 months, 42 species joined the Terran Defense Concordat. Most were small worlds that had been vulnerable to aggression, but not all. The Kresh hives joined, bringing their economic power. Even some of the medium-sized powers signed on. The galaxy was reorganizing itself. Humanity wasn't at the center, but they were something new, a guarantor of peace. A species that could fight but chose not to unless necessary. Elena found the work exhausting. Every day brought new problems. Trade disputes. Border conflicts. Species that didn't trust each other trying to work together. She missed the simplicity of military command, where objectives were clear and orders were followed. But she also saw the progress. Species that had been enemies were now talking. Small colonies that had lived in fear could now sleep safely. The Concordat was working. Then one day a message arrived that shocked everyone. The Jathir Empire requested to join the Terran Defense Concordat. Elena read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. Then she called an emergency meeting with President Morrison and the Concordat leadership. This has to be a trick, Morrison said. The Jathir Empire starting this whole war. I don't think it is, Elena said slowly. Look at their situation. The war devastated their economy. They've had internal problems, revolts in some regions. The Empress was forced to abdicate. There's a new government now, more moderate. So they want protection, Chen said. He had retired from the military but still advised on security matters. They're afraid of revenge attacks. Probably, Elena agreed. But isn't that exactly what the Concordat is for? To protect against aggression whoever the victim is? The debate lasted for hours. Some Concordat members absolutely refused to allow the Jathir to join. Others saw it as a test of the organization's principles. In the end, Elena made the decision. We accept their application, she said, but with conditions. They have to continue paying reparations. They have to allow Concordat observers on their military bases, and they have to publicly acknowledge their role in starting the war. The Jathir government agreed to all the terms. 6 months later, they became full members of the Concordat. Elena met the new Jathir ambassador at the signing ceremony. Her name was Saris, and she had been a junior officer during the war. Young, earnest. Clearly nervous about meeting Elena. Ambassador Vasquez, Saris said carefully. I know this is difficult. My people killed thousands of your people, and my people killed hundreds of thousands of yours, Elena replied. If we're going to move forward, we need to acknowledge both truths. I've studied what happened, Saris said. I've read the battle reports, the tactical analysis. Your people are terrifying warriors. We can be, Elena agreed. But Saris, here's something I want you to understand. We didn't enjoy it. Every human commander I know has nightmares about the war. We remember every ship we destroyed, every life we took. That's the difference between us and the old warrior species. We know the cost. Saris looked at her with something like relief. Then perhaps we can help each other remember. So it never happens again. The new Galactic Collective Council met for the first time 1 year later. Humanity now sat on the Security Council with veto power over military actions. The Concordat had grown to 76 members. The galaxy was more stable than it had been in centuries. Elena stood in the observation dome of the collective headquarters and watched the ships coming and going. Trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, tourist transports. Peace looked a lot like traffic patterns. You look thoughtful, a voice said behind her. It was Chen, who had come to the station for a memorial service. I was just thinking, Elena said. 2 years ago we were at war, killing each other by the thousands. Now we're allies, partners. How did that happen? We reminded them we could fight. Then we showed them we could stop fighting, Chen said. That's a powerful combination. Is it enough? Elena asked. Will it last? Chen shrugged. Nothing lasts forever. Someday there will be another threat. Another species that thinks they can push us around. And we'll have to decide again. Fight or surrender. Violence or submission. And we'll choose fighting, Elena said quietly. Because we know how now. We can't unlearn it. No, Chen agreed. But that's okay. The trick isn't forgetting how to fight. It's remembering why we fight. For protection, not conquest. For defense, not aggression. As long as we remember that, we'll be fine. Later that day, Elena attended the memorial service. It was held in a specially built chamber with 3,000 names carved into the walls. Every human who had died in the war, soldiers and civilians, adults and children, they were all remembered here. A young girl approached Elena after the ceremony. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. "Ambassador Vasquez? My teacher said you were a hero. Is that true?" Elena knelt down to look the girl in the eye. "No, sweetie. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who did what had to be done. My dad died in the war," the girl said. "He was on the destroyer Valiant." Elena felt her throat tighten. The Valiant. She remembered that ship. Remembered its captain ramming tactics. Your father was very brave. He said you saved a lot of people. That's why he fought. To protect us, Elena took the girl's hand. That's why we all fought. And that's why we need to remember. Not to celebrate the war, but to make sure we never have to fight it again. The girl nodded solemnly and walked back to her mother. Elena watched them go and thought about the future. Humanity had remembered its temper, had shown the galaxy what happened when you pushed them too far, but more importantly, they had remembered their restraint, their ability to choose peace over vengeance. That night, Elena recorded a message for the archives. It would be sealed for 50 years, then released as a historical document. "To whoever watches this in the future," she said to the camera, "you'll know by now how the war started and how it ended. You'll know the tactics we used, the weapons we built, the victories we won, but I want you to understand something else. The war wasn't about proving we were strong. It was about proving we couldn't be pushed around. The galaxy forgot that peaceful people can fight back. They mistook our kindness for weakness. They forgot that we had a temper, so we reminded them, and it was terrible. Thousands died. Families were destroyed. We did things we're not proud of, but we also did something important. We defended ourselves. We stood up. And then, when we could have conquered, we chose mercy instead. That's the lesson I want you to remember, not how we fought, but why we fought, and why we stopped. Strength without restraint is just cruelty, but strength with restraint? That's power. Real power. The kind that builds civilizations instead of destroying them." Elena looked directly into the camera. The galaxy forgot humanity's temper. We reminded them, but more importantly, we reminded ourselves that our temper must serve justice, that our weapons must protect the innocent, that our strength must build peace, not break it. Don't forget that, because the day we forget is the day we become the monsters everyone feared we were. She ended the recording and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there on 3,000 worlds, people were living their lives in peace. Farmers growing crops, artists creating beauty, children playing in parks. They could do all that because humanity remembered how to fight. And because humanity remembered when to stop fighting. That was the real victory. Not the battles won or the enemies defeated, but the choice to put down the sword and pick up the tools of peace. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's temper. Now they would never forget it. But they would also never forget humanity's mercy. And that, Elena thought, was exactly how it should be.